Hello. I've recently been having a bit of a clear out, and up in my loft I found a big bag full of old motorcycle body armour that had been taken out of various riding suits over the years. Now, I'm definitely not a hoarder, but for some reason I decided to keep all this stuff, and I thought some people might be interested, well, one of you, two of you maybe, might be interested in seeing how this sort of thing had changed over the years. This is not a guide to body armour standards or a recommendation for anything. I just thought it was quite interesting what we used to ride with versus what we ride with today, or many of us do anyway. So back in the 90s, when I first started riding, there were two main manufacturers that I can remember of riding jeans, and they were literally denim jeans. This was kind of before a lot of the aramid fibres and other types of lining had come in. And those two were Giali and Shoshoni. Now let's start with Giali. I don't actually remember owning a pair, but in my definitely not a hoarder pile of old armour, I found these bad boys. And these are the knee armour from some, I'm guessing, 90s vintage Giali jeans. And as you can see, there's really, Giali, there's really nothing to them. They might help a bit if you kneel down, but yeah, absolutely no protective qualities in any sort of crash, I would suggest. So yeah, that was Giali, of that era anyway. So I did own and ride with for many years Shoshoni jeans. Now my first pair was literally double layer denim. It was like a pair of jeans inside another pair of jeans. They were pretty basic, and they came with this sort of armour. So we're starting to get this sort of foam composite stuff. These were the knee pads, and these were the hip protectors, and it's pretty basic stuff, you know. It's just two pieces of foam glued together, fairly rigid. Bit of flex in the knees, not a huge amount of coverage. This looks more like an elbow protector by today's standards, but these were the knee pads. So again, pretty basic, no standards that I'm aware of. It's just someone's idea of what body armor should look like. Again, low speed drop, probably help a bit, but not particularly great at anything other than that, I suspect. So moving on from those foam options, this is what I had in later Shoshoni jeans. I'm pretty sure that's what they're from. And now we're getting this weird sort of, it's kind of a soft material. This almost looks like fake leather. Not much compressibility, not much impact protection. I think these were designed for comfort, shall we say. Starting to get much bigger protectors. These are for hips, these are for knees and some vaguely shin protection, but it's pretty awful stuff. And as you can see, trying to hold it in place with Velcro is always a bit of a disaster. Stick on Velcro. Sewn on is much better if you have to use Velcro at all, which these ones kind of do have. So again, provides a bit of protection, but again, no standards, just someone's idea of what might work, I guess. You wouldn't want to have any sort of high-speed crash with this stuff. Well, you wouldn't want to have a high-speed crash, but yeah, this sort of stuff isn't going to give you a huge amount of protection either, is it really? Let's be honest. And then moving on from that, we're back into the sort of composite foam stuff again. It's a knee protector, hip protectors. Again, the sizes are pretty good. You've got your two layers of foam. They're trying to make the outer a little bit harder now, I guess for some impact protection. But again, if you go down the road wearing these, I mean, they'll help a bit, but it's going to hurt whatever happens. No markings of any kind either. Again, no official protective markings. Incidentally, I just took these out of my work trousers. So that's the top tip. If you're definitely not a hoarder like me, and you've got some of this old body armour, it works a treat in work trousers where they have the knee pockets. Saves you dragging around a kneeler pad if you're working up in the loft or something. Top tip there. So see, it was worth hanging on to them for 20 years. Okay, moving on from that, I found these two bits. And I think these are from my first set of two-piece leathers that I used to use on track days. Possibly Keto, was that one of the cheapy brands back in the 90s? And now we're starting to see some markings. So CE96 type 1 right hip. So we're getting into actual early days of, I guess, PPE for motorcycle gear. Stuff that actually has some sort of rating and some sort of protection level that you can hopefully trust in. As I said, I believe these came out of some old leathers. What's interesting about these is we've now got kind of 3 layers. So 2 layers of foam, which is basically the same stuff, and then a hard layer, or hardish layer of plastic on the outside, and sewn in Velcro, so none of that sticky stuff that falls off and moves. And I assume these are like this because now you've got a little bit of impact protection, and maybe if you're sliding down the road, you've got that hard surface, it's less likely to grab, maybe, or it gives a smoother surface for sliding. Not sure. Obviously, it met some standards of the time. Again, pretty basic stuff. It's still going to hurt if you go down the road on that, but interesting to my mind to see how that's actually changed. Okay, moving on slightly again. This was from, I think, a Wise suit that I had years ago. And again, we've got CE markings, if you can see that. And we've got can't really see that, the levels and the types. Now again, I can't remember all the different standards as they were coming out. But you've got level 1 on those. And again, we've got a soft armour here. So none of that hard plastic covering, but probably more impact protection. And this was the back protector. So we're starting to get something of a reasonable quality, I would say, you know, something where if you do hit the ground hard, it's going to help a little bit. And it's got whatever standards it met of the day. So we're getting up into the sort of 2000s, 2010s maybe, something like that. Now you could argue whether this is a good back protector or not. There's obviously no protection against bending, but it does provide some impact protection. So I thought that was quite interesting. Yeah, and quite comfortable to wear as well. Those earlier foam things like knee pads would dig in, whereas these softer ones now are starting to be much more comfortable but still provide some reasonable level of protection. Oh, these are just some other ones I found as well, which are also CE marked, of the older foam type. I'm not sure what they're from. Oh, and incidentally, if you buy riding jeans, I don't know if you still can, but it was quite common back in the day to have foam like this. And they were often sold with comfort padding because the manufacturers didn't want to go to the expense of actually putting body armour in it. I think that's still fairly common today with back protectors actually. You can buy jackets that have all the armour, but you have to pay extra for the back protector. So something to look out for if you're looking to buy protective kit. Okay, now we're starting to get into the better stuff. This is D3O, which is still in use today. This was out of my Hood branded, made in UK, Kevlar, or not Kevlar, aramid fibre cargo trousers. And D3O is a pretty well-known brand these days, I think. Again, they've gone for the soft approach, so you're getting good impact protection from these. Certainly much better than some of those earlier types. And again, I'm not a huge fan of sticky Velcro though, I'll be honest. But yeah, you can see that meets the type 1. Now when I ordered my Hood jeans many years ago, I specified type 2 armour, but they'd run out. So fair play, they supplied them with the type 1. And then when they got the stuff back in stock, they sent me a full set of type 2, which was very nice of them at the time. So I kept all the part one. So I kept all the Type 1 because, of course, I did, and replaced it with the Type 2. I don't know how well it's going to be to see, but this Type 2 stuff is much thicker, still very flexible, but much more bulky and consequently provides much better protection. Although, interestingly, it's got, maybe that says it meets Type 1 and Type 2. Not sure what that means. Maybe someone who knows what the standards were of the day, tell me about that. I guess it exceeds Type 1 but also meets Type 2. Anyway, waffle. So yeah, I always went for the best sort of armour I could get because I was riding on the road all the time, and quite frankly there's just as many morons on the road back then as there are now. Yeah, but this is good stuff and definitely helps in the event of an accident. It's going to do more than just protect you against scuffs and scratches. Proper actual impact protection. And then finally, well almost finally, I pulled this out of my current RST adventure suit, which I might review if people are interested. I have opinions. Anyway, so this is the back protector. Again, you can argue about levels of back protection and types of back protection, but this is Type 2, very, very thick, almost feels a bit like memory foam, so you can press into it and it slowly comes back to shape. Fairly lightweight, very comfortable, conforms to your body shape, so all the armour in my suit is Type 2 of this style. I wasn't going to pull it all out for this video. And again, slightly newer safety ratings compared to the older stuff. So yeah, soft and flexible, but provides very, very good impact protection. To be honest, if I was buying any suit these days, personally I always go for level 2 armour because I want the best protection. But you do have the trade-off where it is more bulky, so it might not be as comfortable as level 1 armour. It's down to your own dynamic risk assessment, I suggest. So that's pretty much it, although there's a couple of other things I found because I'm definitely not a hoarder. I found this bad boy, put that in frame. So this is a back protector, and this is what they were starting to look like for track day use back in the day. Now this is, I will admit, a cheap one from one of the German supermarkets, but it's got good coverage. This says it's level 2 from whatever era it is. I'm going to say late 90s perhaps. I can't tell. Maybe early 2000s. And it's got a combination of the hard or fairly hard outer and then sort of comfort padding, and it provides some resistance to bending as well, which I think was becoming more known as a more important feature, especially for racetrack use. I used to wear this doing track days. Would it have provided a huge amount of protection? Hard to say. I did bin it once or twice and never really got injured, but yeah, definitely better than some of those earlier attempts at back protectors, but I would suggest nothing like as good as the sort of thing you can buy today. And it was cheap because I was skinned, so you know, but you can get stuff that's better than nothing. And finally, if I can get it onto camera, I found this bad boy. This is what I used to wear when I did a bit of off-road racing back in the day. So it's like a mesh jacket effectively with all the armour attached to it, including a back protector of sorts. Now looking at this, it's definitely not as impact protective as the modern stuff. I think maybe people out there know. I feel this is more against stone protection. So for like motocross riders, I used to do rallies. So stones being flung up by the bike in front of you are going to hit this and basically not injure you. It's not really designed to protect in a sort of a high speed crash, and typically the speeds are a lot slower in the sort of riding I did anyway. So there is some padding in it, but it's mainly about the harder sort of plastic covering. Same for the elbows, shoulders, and the back protector, which again is attempting to prevent against bending backwards, if you like, And interestingly, also has this articulation here. I'm not sure what that's about. Aiding with comfort, I guess. Maybe I'm moving around a lot more, I guess, on off-road riding. But yeah. But yeah, quite interesting. Again, I don't think this is designed for high-speed impacts. It's more about stone protection and, you know, tumbles onto soft ground. That's my opinion anyway. It's worth what you pay for it. And actually, finding that has just reminded me that I used to wear these off-roading as well. So I had off-road trousers and then basically strapped these to myself to provide the protection. And these are pretty good. Again, they're more about the stone protection, I think. I did crash in these and land on some rocks, and it did chuffing hurt, I can tell you, but I had absolutely no injuries. So no CE type markings on this. So this predates, I guess, official levels of protection, but they were pretty good. I certainly landed on my knees a couple of times without injury. Still chuffing hurt though. So yeah, there we go. I'm definitely not a hoarder, but here's some of the body armour that I seem to have accidentally kept over the years. And will now, some of it, be heading off to the recycling centre because I don't think I really need it anymore. Apart from this one that's going into my work trousers, and this one that's going back into my hood jeans. Actually, I need this one for my jacket. Yeah, this might come in handy if I... perhaps I could reuse those on something else. Yeah, I think I'll just put it back in a bag in the loft. Hashtag definitely not a hoarder. Thanks for watching.